We should be educating our own people. I don't think other people can do a very good job. And this week has been a crazy week. We took our middle kid to college and spent time at Tuskegee, and I just have so much respect for that institution. And I met some great people there. And if you go to my Instagram, Dr. Boyce Finance, you can find some of the things that I sort of figured out and learned when I was at Tuskegee. I mentioned most directly the fact that I had a great grandfather that got lynched in the state of Alabama. And of course, that's a big deal. Very, very emotional to even talk about that. And then also, I talked to some young black men about their future, and they were super smart, and they were doing amazing things. And and the one thing that I told them is make sure you master AI because that's taking everybody's job. And I've also told you guys to invest in AI related stocks because, and I pray to God that every one of you is investing right now because there's so much, this market's raining money right now. It is literally raining money every day. In fact, let me know in the chat if you're an investor and if you're seeing what I'm seeing. It doesn't get much better than this. And I don't want you to miss out on the money. What good is it to sit around and talk about wealth if you're not making money? And as I've mentioned to you all repeatedly, the stock market is the number one wealth builder in America. So if somebody doesn't have wealth, ask them, are you investing in the stock market? If they say no, then you've solved the problem. You've diagnosed the illness by saying, oh, well, of course, why would you have money? You're not invested in the greatest wealth creator in the history of this country. So make sure you participate. Make sure you're in there learning what's going on. We do stock market Tuesdays every Tuesday, so you don't have to worry about being confused. Go to drboycestockmarket.com and you can kind of get started there. All right, so let's jump in and let's talk about some of the stuff that Dr. Anderson has for us. By the way, there is a movie, there's a Powernomics movie made by a brother named Justin Irvin, and it's gonna be shown at the Invest Fest. And also, we showed a scene of it at the All Black National Convention. And as you know, Dr. Anderson deserves to have his own movie. I think Charlemagne the God is one of the executive producers on the film. And I'm really happy when we honor the right people. And so Dr. Anderson does have a movie coming out. I'm going to reach out to Justin and see if I can find some way to screen it somewhere here or somewhere else. We can get that done. I hope they mention it on the Breakfast Club. I kind of got banned from the Breakfast Club. If you wonder why they don't see me anymore, I told the truth about my experience with a lady named Angela Rye, and apparently that was a no-no. I guess in that space because after that I was never invited back. So, but I still don't regret a damn thing that I said because that lady was her behavior was unacceptable and quite hideous when I saw her interacting with the very same people that are paying you 10, 15, $20,000 to speak. You got to show respect. And I didn't feel like she was doing that, to be honest with you. So if you ever wonder why I was on the Breakfast Club a lot around 2014 up through about 2016, and then it suddenly stopped, I think that's why. But hey, who cares? It's all right because I reach millions of people by myself, so that's totally fine. And I reach the right people. And the other thing too is I'm really happy that despite that difference, Charlemagne supporting Dr. Anderson's film because Dr. Anderson deserves that respect. So everybody, type Powernomics in the chat so we can bring Dr. Anderson's energy in the room. He's still alive, so he hasn't passed or anything. But let's bring Dr. Anderson's Powernomics energy in the room by typing the word Powernomics here. So I'm reading from a book called Dirty Little Secrets. I'm going to start on page 162. And I'm going to actually, and there's something here that's titled "The Truth About Grant." So this is the truth about, I guess, Ulysses S. Grant, maybe. I have not read this yet, but I'm going to just read it, and you can make of it what you like. It says, even though he was a modest and self-effacing man, Ulysses S. Grant of the Union Army generated a lot of gossip. Rumors charge Grant with being an anti-Semitic drunkard and slaveholder who used the government for nepotism. Some of the charges were true. Some of the charges were true, some were not. It is true that in 1862, he ordered all Jews expelled from the U.S. Department of the Treasury within 24 hours for, quote, violating every regulation of trade and department orders, end quote. It was true that he used the government to bestow favors on his own family. He gave federal positions to 13 members of his family. Sounds like another guy we know, right? It says here, in racial matters, another accusation was true. Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, these are your allies now, so let's see where this goes. Grant was a slaveholder who had voted for the Southern Democratic ticket and was married to a pro-Southern family. Married into a pro-Southern family. In 1858, General Grant bought a mulatto slave, William Jones, 35 years of age, but gave him his freedom a year later, even though he could have sold Jones and recaptured his investment. Okay. Further, in hopes of holding the Union together, Grant did vote for Buchanan on the Southern Democratic ticket. Grant is equally guilty of the last accusation. He did, in fact, marry Julia Dent of St. Louis, who owned at least three slaves. Her family was pro-Southern. Grant differed sharply with his father-in-law on slavery and before the war returned his wife's slaves to her family. Although guilty on all three counts, General Grant did demonstrate concern for the humanity of black people and personally rejected their enslavement. So it sounds like what he's saying, he's given a sort of a nuanced portrayal of Ulysses S. Grant. I don't see him as a hero or a savior. I don't see him as a hater of black people or as a lover of black people. I think we have to love ourselves. But he does sound like a guy who didn't just go along with the okey doke. And for that, I give him some credit. I mean, he could have, he let the brother have his freedom. He could have kept him and sold him. So I give him credit for that. But the fact that he was so tolerant of slavery within his own family and kind of let certain things happen, you can decide how you feel about that. You know, I know, for example, if you were doing something that I found to be egregious, like enslaving another human being, I personally wouldn't stand for that, but I didn't live during those times and I wasn't a white man in those times. I know that if you were doing something to harm a child, I couldn't be your friend and watch you harm a child. So I kind of put slavery up there with harming a child. And so even though you could say you might want to call him good white folks because he wasn't as evil as the rest of them. I don't really consider him to necessarily be good, but at the same time, it sounds like he was at least trying to grapple with what was the truth at the time, which was that you shouldn't be enslaving other people. All right, so let's keep going here. All right, so moving on. All right, so a lynching that backfired. Whites demonstrated their life and death control over blacks through cruel and excessive punishment of slaves, especially the lynchings of black men. Up until the 1930s, at least one black man was reportedly lynched every single day in the year, most charged with raping a white woman. Shannon Sharp, pay attention, Shannon Sharp. You need to listen, Shannon Sharp. The word rape was broad and ambiguous. It included any and everything from sexual contact to reckless eyeballing. So that means you could literally assault a white woman with your eyes by looking at her too hard. Under the stringent social sanctions of black enslavement and Jim Crow segregation, there are a few accounts in available records that show black men attacking or raping white women. So a lot of these men did not do it. With black men so vulnerable and suspect, it made little sense for a black man to approach a white woman for sex. Shannon Sharp. However, on at least one historical occasion, both the Union and Confederate armies used a charge of rape against a black male as a major wartime propaganda effort. On June 20th, wow, that's my birthday, the Union Army hanged a black man who had been charged with raping a white woman. The Union Army, those are your allies. They hanged a black man who had been charged with raping a white woman. He was hanged with plain view of the Confederate lines near Petersburg, Virginia. The Union's purpose for lynching the black man in front of Southern white males was to convince them that black males who touch white women would be severely and swiftly dealt with, even if the North, or even in the North, if it had won the war. So did y'all catch that? Let me know if you caught that. So what they're basically saying is that your allies lynched a black man. They lynched a black man in front of the Southerners. They did it in front of the Southerners to show them, like, look, we might be divided on this north-south thing. We might be divided on preserving the union and the sanctity and the sovereignty of the southern states. But one thing that we're unified on is our hatred of black people. One thing that we can always agree on, even with my enemies, liberal or conservative, is that we don't want these Negroes touching our women. So the North, your allies. See, this is where, I have to kind of challenge you when you talk about the good white folks and all that. I'm not saying all white people are evil. I don't believe that it's that simple. But when you talk about these so-called allies we're supposed to have, I'm like, well, where are the allies? Because they got lynched by the North. He got lynched by his protectors, saviors, right? So, which means he had no protectors. So don't come try to convince me that the Democratic Party or the Republican Party is protecting me, because I just simply don't believe you. Okay. All right. So, and if you ever want to know the difference between myself and people like, say, a Roland Martin, is I just say, well, I think black people have to do for self. I'm not a big fan of sitting around and getting mad about, about what the Republicans did and rallying to go support the Democrats because I don't believe we have allies. When it comes to your wealth, you have no allies. When it comes to your broken families, you have no allies. When it comes to your dead children in the street, you have no allies. When it comes to your uneducated kids, you have no allies. When it comes to your mental and physical health, you dying early, you have no allies. When it comes to your mental health, you have no allies. So what I really want you to understand is that the only ally you'll ever have is the ally in the mirror or the ally who looks like you. So my most enjoyable conversations are not with friendly people who tell me that they're trying to save the black community. It's with other people that look like me who say they're trying to save the black community. It's like this brother I met in Bucky's yesterday on our way back from Alabama. His name was Sean. I never forgot his name because he's important. And he talked about manhood and discipline and hard work and success and building businesses and educating our kids. And I said, okay, this is what an ally looks like. So I think that for black people, we have to reconsider the definition of what it really means to be an ally. An ally, to me, is somebody who's really there for you, really trying to help you, somebody you'll go to battle with, somebody that'll have your back, somebody that'll lift you when you're down, somebody who will carry you when you need it, somebody who will take you to the next level, who wants to see you win. I think most of your allies are actually other black people. And unfortunately, it's not even all black people. But I believe that those are your allies. Okay. Now, again, to the good white folks in the building, I have nothing against you. And if you want to support something that black people are doing, I'm not going to stop you. But the problem is that the trust has been eroded through things like this. This man got lynched by the North. Ulysses S. Grant had a family that had slaves. So how in the hell are you going to tell me you my ally when you lynching me? If your allies are lynching you, then who the hell are your friends? With friends like that, you don't need no enemies. Seriously, how many can you imagine that? Your friend, the person that's supposed to protect you, is like, yeah, I'm the best. I'm the most important thing you got. Boom, he shoots you in the face. That's not a friend. Like that's I'm sorry to break that down for you. So let's keep going. All right. Now this is interesting. This is called a lynching that backfired. What does Dr. Anderson have for us here? Whites demonstrated their life and death control over blacks through cruel and excessive punishment of slaves, especially the lynchings of black men. Up until the 1930s, at least one black man was reportedly lynched every day in the year. With raping a white woman. I already read that part. I'm so sorry. So listen to this. Okay, so this is where they hang the black man in front of the white people to prove that they hate black people as much as they do, and so they were more interested in were maintaining their friendship with their own than they were in actually helping you. Do you understand? Like you were kind of subordinated. They're like, look, hey, we kill black people too. So can't we all just get along? Right? That's kind of what that says to me, right? So here it says on page 163 of the Black History Dirty Little Secrets by Dr. Claude Anderson, his website's powernomics.com. It says that the plan backfired. So they lynched the black man in front of the South in order to show the South that the North was down for killing black people too. They said the plan backfired though. And the Confederacy, which had been losing thousands of runaway black slave laborers, cleverly turned the incident to the advantage of the South. So they lynched the black man, the North lynched the black man in front of the South to show, like, hey, we hate black people too. We down, cuz, right? And but the Confederacy used that lynching to their advantage. Now, how did they do that? Let's see. It says the Confederacy marched hundreds of black slaves past the lynching spot. Oh, I just had a thought. Forgive me. I'm freaking out right now. Let me calm down. They marched hundreds of black slaves past the lynching spot, pointing out just how inhumane northern white males were, how they were just as bad, if not worse, than the southern white males. Further, the Confederacy warned the slaves that should they run off to the north, that they would be lynched too, just as white northerners had lynched the unfortunate black charged with rape. Shortly thereafter, nighttime slave escapes and runaways all but ceased on the war front. For those of you who know me, why do you think I jumped up and down just now like a freaking crazy teenager? Why do you think my head almost exploded a minute ago? What the hell does that remind you of? Here, this is why you need to stick with us. Look at how racist they are. Look, hey, the Republicans, look at what they did to black people. They're so racist. Be a Democrat. And then you look at the Republicans. Republicans are like, look at what the Democrats are doing to black people. They're so racist. You should be a Republican. This is Democrat Republican shit. That's what that is. Let me read it again. So, just for those who just came in, the North, led by Ulysses S. Grant, they had a black man accused of rape. They lynched the black man in front of the South because they're showing the South that they can be just as racist, that they don't like black people either. So in a way, you could almost say like maybe the Democrats do something that normally the Republicans might do. How like Bill Clinton ran for office as a Republican, basically. He took the left and pushed it to the center to say, hey, we can be tough on crime too. So let's sign the crime bill. Let's send as many Negroes to prison as possible. And then we'll show you that we can be tough on crime too, right? Because we're unifying the country under our flag. So the South, which you can call them the Republicans, that's kind of the narrative here. The South says, "Oh, no, no, this doesn't show that we're alike. We're going to take our Negroes and we want them to see what you did because then the Negroes will know, oh, you think you're going to do better by leaving our political party? I mean leaving our side of the military? I mean leaving our political party? I mean leaving the South? You think you're going to do better over there? Let us show you what they did to a black person." Now, I want you to ask yourself this simple question. So put yourself in the position of one of the slaves in the South. Somehow you end up in the military. Maybe your master made you go. And they marked you past this lynching. You're thinking, first you're thinking, man, I need to get to the North because the North, that's where my allies are, right? And they marked you past the lynching. And they say, no, you don't want to go to the North. Look at what they did to him. Yeah, sure, we might enslave you and mistreat you, but we didn't do this to you. You ain't hanging from a tree now, are you, boy? Right? And think about this. So you have some who will say, yeah, well, yeah, slavery is bad, but huh, it is the lesser of two evils. Hint, hint. Anybody catch that? That was me being sarcastic out loud. It is the lesser of two evils. I mean, slavery, at least I get to live. It's better than being lynched. Do you think that that's the right conclusion for him to have? Do you think that that Negro's winning? And let's say he goes to his family and his family's like, no, we need to get out of here. We need to be free. We need to get away from all these people. And you say, no, 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 no. Just, don't go to the North though, because the North, they lynching black people up there. You should stay here and be a slave like me. Because at least we ain't being killed. Do you understand does anybody get this, or am I the only weirdo in the building? Do y'all follow the logic here? How this is so ironically similar to how they get your vote in every election. They never tell you, like neither the North nor the South had a good deal to offer black people. Neither one of them. The South is like, we're gonna enslave you, we're gonna rape you, we're gonna break up your whole family, and we're gonna torture you. And the North is like, oh, but you touch our women, then we're gonna kill your ass too. So what Negro in his right mind, what intelligent black person at that time could look at this scenario and somehow say, those are my allies? Or, oh, I gotta pick a side. That's not a choice. That's not logical. The only intelligent black people are the ones who said, we need to get the hell up out of here. We need to be free. We need to get away from all these people because they all crazy. So really, in my view, politically speaking, some of the smartest black people I know are the ones who say, I'm not getting involved with either one of the parties. I saw Rizza Islam. He did a nice video about that. The two, what they say, two different wings of the same part, two wings on the same bird or something like that. The right wing and the left wing and the same bird. Malcolm X used to say that. Thank you, Calvin McWilliams, smartest black man in America. So at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, why are we being suckered by this whole lesser of two evils argument? You don't have any allies. You don't have any allies. All you have is a group of people who tell you, if you think that what we're doing to you is bad, look at what they're going to do to you next. That's all they do. So it's no different from, so this must have started in the Civil War, where the North literally was like, oh, they murdered a black person. So we're going to tell our living slaves, hey, it's not good for you, but at least you're alive. Look at what they did to you. We're not treating you so good. We don't really like you. We're not going to make your life better, but we can tell you that we're not going to make it as bad as they're going to make it. Right. And so keep that in mind when you vote. I don't think I will never spend my time voting against a political party. You need to tell me what I'm voting for. You need to tell me where my life is going to get better if I vote for you. If you can't do that, then sorry, you won't get my vote. And I'm not telling anybody else what to do, though. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I think Roland Martin said that I was telling black people not to vote, and I hope most of you know that I don't do that. We've gone through this exercise that I've never told black people not to vote. I've simply told black people to do what's in your conscience. And that's what's interesting to me. I think Roland said that the other day. He said these guys like Boyce Watkins, they out here telling black people not to vote. I said, I never told black people not to vote. You clearly weren't paying attention, sir. I've never told anybody not to vote. I've told you to do what's best for you. What's wrong with that? Is that not okay? Are you so not used to black people actually having a choice? Do you have such a problem with us using our own brains? I mean, are you consistently committed to the idea that black people are so stupid that we need somebody thinking for us? I don't believe you need anybody thinking for you. I don't give a damn who you vote for. I really don't. I don't care if you don't vote. I don't care if you vote for a third party. I don't care if you vote Democrat, Republican. I got friends on both sides of the aisle, no side of the aisle. I think that's, to me, that because the solution is not, it's easier to point to what the solution is not than it is to point to the exact solution. But I think I can do both. What the solution is not is for us to keep doing what we've been doing. That's not a solution. That's not going to work. But I believe that a big part of the solution, though, is in that wealth category. Most black people I know that are doing well are those who are financially secure. If you're financially secure, you're emotionally healthy, physically healthy, and you have a solid family, those black families are usually pretty happy. Let me know if you're in that category. Let me know if you'd consider yourself to be a financially secure person with a good family that loves you, with good physical health, good mental health. Tell me if your life is good. Is your life good or bad? What would you say? Would you say it's good? Now, some of you may not be there yet, and it's okay. If you're trying to get there and you're going in that direction, tell me, do you feel like your life is getting better? Yes or no? Right? And I ask you this because to me that solves the problem. That solves the riddle. Right? That's the riddle. Because why do you vote? What are politicians supposed to do? They're supposed to improve the lives of their constituents. So the to me the hat trick or the rope a dope or the big lie, the gaslight that's fed to you is that somehow you need those people to improve your life, and they never do. Because the system is unfortunately tainted by money so badly that they only improve the lives of their financial benefactors. Your vote does matter. It just doesn't matter for your well-being. Your vote does matter though. And it matters because that's why billionaires will spend money paying for ad campaigns to get your vote, get you riled up over some social issue, whether it's abortion or whatever, right? They get you riled up, you vote, they get elected. First thing they do is they don't run to serve the constituents, they run to serve the master. They don't run to serve the sheep, they run to serve the sheep herder. They don't run to serve the commodity. You as the voter, you are the commodity. Commodities are controlled. It's like gasoline being put in a car. The driver is not when the gasoline is put in the car, the driver doesn't thank the gasoline for going into the car because he knows the gasoline is only in the car because of the person who runs the damn gas station. So in America, you have financial gas stations where they pump their cars full of gas, and that's how they drive to the promised land. And those are the individuals who benefit from your vote. So what I'm saying to you is that if you don't want to get screwed in a capitalist society, you have to stop volunteering to be a commodity. You have to stop volunteering for other people to take something from you, like your vote, and use it for their purposes. You use it for yours. Maybe you say, let's say the gasoline gets a conscience. The gasoline's like, I might go in the car, I might not. It depends on what you do for me. What you gonna do for me, right? So what you do is you take your little vote and you say, I got my vote. It's right here in my pocket, and I'm not scared to use it. So what you got for me? Wait, I'm giving my vote to the best deal. Whoever gives me the best deal, you might get my vote, but it has to meet a standard. You can't tell me that your deal is a great deal because it's better than the other person. No, the other person, that's why they're not getting my vote, right? They're not getting my vote. So stop comparing yourself to the lowest common denominator. Start comparing yourself to the top. Compare yourself to somebody that is actually going to solve my problems and make my life better. In fact, I always say that the vote that I give for Black people in every election is I vote for Black people. My vote goes to you. My vote goes to you and your family. If you want your life to be better, my vote goes to you. And I show you this by talking to you on a regular basis because I know that you control the keys to whatever life you want to have, whatever improvement you want to make, whatever level you want to go to. You control that. You control that, man. I mean, I'm not telling you that society is not impacted by who we vote for. It absolutely is, right? But unfortunately, if you understand money the way I understand money, it's become to some extent a hopeless situation in certain areas. That's why you have politicians that don't do what their voters ask them to do. Ain't nobody in this room. In fact, give me a yes. How many of you would agree with this statement? How many of you would agree with me if I was to say that not a damn person in this room wants to give $4 billion to the Israeli military so they can go drop bombs on Palestine? How many of you would agree with me on that statement? Would say, yes, I vote against. Let's take a vote. Who wants to send $4 billion to Israel and then another 10, 20 billion to Ukraine? Anybody? Give me a yes if if you want to vote against that. Like, so yes, if you're against it. That's what I meant to say. Give me a yes if you would vote for my resolution, which says right now we should stop sending money to Israel and stop sending money to Ukraine. And instead we should send that money to the south side, the west side of Chicago to create some jobs for them kids. We got to send it to Brooklyn to help out that community. So Jay-Z screwed him over when he built that Barclays Center with those Russians, right? Right. But we're gonna take our money and we're gonna put it into educating our kids in America, right? Like really, like nobody, there's no voter who's demanding that they send billions of dollars to Israel. APAC is demanding that. And what APAC has been doing is they find any politician who dares to disagree with them, and they say, "Oh, you think you have balls? You think you can stand up to us? Well, we're going to go fund your opponent, and we're going to get them elected, and they will bow to us." That's how the game is played. So at least know what you're dealing with. Voting is not the way to change your life, in my view. I'm not saying don't do it though. I'm not saying don't do it. So don't run around here saying I'm telling people not to vote, and don't ever tell anybody that I said your vote doesn't matter. It does matter, except it may not matter for you. But it matters to the people that need the power. It matters to the billionaires that are trying to run the government. They know they can't get in without votes, but they know votes can be bought with money. So therefore, in America, in capitalism, the person with the most money wins, which is why I'm such an advocate for Black economics, because if you are a person that is financially secure, you may not have the ability to go conquer another person, nor would I even encourage you to do that. We ain't trying to build slaveholders or slave masters up in here. I just want you to have enough economic power to defend yourself against the capitalist beast that will come into your life, chew up your soul, eat your children, destroy your family, ruin your mental health, and kill you. That's what I want. That's what I want you to do. I just want you to be safe from capitalism. Capitalism has money. Money is like a sword in in the battle of capitalism. If you want to win a sword fight, you have to have a sword yourself. A lot of you have no sword. So capitalism comes and chops up your life. And don't worry, AC Salam. We're going to get back to the book in a minute, but right now I got to make my point. So please let me make this point. So if you want to understand how to survive and how to navigate a capitalist society, then you have to understand the value of your capital, because your capital becomes a sacred barrier and a protector from all these systems and individuals that are seeking to exploit and extract the hell out of you. You got to learn how to fight. And you ain't fighting by marching and voting. That's not, and praying and all that. That ain't how you fight capitalism, because you're still gonna have to go to work for a capitalist on Monday until you become financially free. All right, let's go back here. And really, I mean, if you think about this, this is what one thing that's so interesting to me. If you feel oppressed by capitalism, but yet you are so financially insecure, so financially desperate that you have to go work for the capitalists, you're fighting an impossible battle, because you win battles with energy. So by spending all your time and energy working for the capitalists, you're literally pouring energy into the very same system that's exploiting you. Do you follow the logic there? Do you see how crazy that is? Like, I really think I'm gonna fight against somebody by taking everything I have that's powerful and giving it to them. Like every weapon I have, every shield, I hand it over and I say, now I'm gonna fight you butt naked. And now not only does he have his own weapons and shields, he's got mine too. Wow, well, because many people, I can't tell you how many people I know who will protest the hell out of capitalism, try to fight a capitalist system, but then show up and work for a capitalist on Monday. So you're not using your free time to liberate yourself. You're using your free time to make sure that the people you're fighting against are even stronger on Monday morning. That's nonsense. That's crazy. That's insanity. You're fighting against yourself. So moving on. All right. So let's see here. So it says here that okay, so after this section, this is page 164 of Dr. Claude Anderson's book called Dirty Little Secrets. You can find the book at powernomics.com. And it says free blacks wanted to fight. Even in the 1792, even though a 1792 law barred blacks from military service, the Union would not have won the war without the aid and involvement of blacks. White fears of arming blacks kept them out of uniform for the first year, despite the eagerness of thousands of free blacks to enlist. So lots of black people wanted to enlist, but they said we don't want to give guns to black people because that's very scary. And so the North tried to fight the battle themselves until they realized they were too cowardly to continue, and we stepped up and fought. In April 1861, the first blacks were appointed commissioned officers in the Civil War by the Confederacy in Louisiana. By the war's end, 93,000 blacks had served in the Confederate Army. However, in August of 1862, the Union's need for more manpower dictated a need for a new public policy on blacks in the military. Frederick Douglass and other prominent blacks petitioned the Union government to give blacks a chance to fight for their own freedom, even though that was not what the war was about. About 200,000 blacks fought in the Union Army, and more than 65,000 were killed. There were 30,000 blacks in the Union Navy, about a quarter of the total number of sailors. Wow, that's major. Blacks in blue took part in 499 military engagements, 39 of which were major battles. One of the first to act was Edwin M. Stanton, Secretary of War, who authorized the military government to enlist black ex-slaves in South Carolina. After the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 authorized enlisting blacks, the governor of Massachusetts moved to organize a black regiment, the famous Massachusetts 54th. Swiftly thereafter, other states began to recruit black soldiers, and in May of 1863, the federal government established a bureau of colored troops to supervise their enlistment. By the end of the war, one soldier in 8 in the Union Army was black. Okay, great. All right. So here is a white soldier's poem about a black soldier. Private Miles O'Reilly, a white soldier, wrote this poem about black slaves joining the Civil War. He says, it looks like is it called Sambo is as a soldier. Okay. Some tell us it's a burning shame to make the niggers fight, and that the trade of being killed belongs but to the white. But as for me, upon my scowl, so liberal are we here, I'll let Sambo be murdered in place of myself on every day of the year. So hear me all, boys, darlings, don't think I'm tipping you chaff. The right to be killed, I'll divide with him and give him the largest half. That is so uninspiring. So basically, he's saying, I'm happy to send Negroes to die in my place. That's, I mean, maybe there's another interpretation here. I'll read it again. Some tell us it's a burning shame to make the niggers fight, and that the trade of being killed belongs but to the white. So he's saying that some people say it's a shame that black people are fighting, but we should be the ones who are dying. But he's basically saying this. He says, but as for me, upon my scowl, so liberal are we here, that I'll let a Sambo be murdered in my place or in place of myself on every day of the year. So he's saying that I'm so liberal that I'll let them fight for me all day long. So hear me all, boys, darlings. Don't think I'm tipping you chaff. The right to be killed, I'll divide with him and give him the largest half. Or maybe he says, don't. I'm tipping you chaff. So I thought it was chaff. So it's chaff because it rhymes with half. It's because he's rhyming because He's a dumb redneck. But still, you get the point, right? So basically, they're saying, yeah, we want black people here because we'd be happy to send you off to die. And I think that that's something to really consider, right? Now, I get it on one hand, if you are volunteering to fight because you either enjoy fighting or you are fighting for something that you really believe in. And I think Civil War, I would put that in that category, right? But I will make the argument that with as with all the love and respect I have for every veteran in this room, y'all know how I feel about them, about our soldiers. I think about the price we paid for participation in things like the Vietnam War, and I think about how many fathers, uncles, brothers a lot of us have who were in that war, and how they came back. I met my uncle. I saw it was the first time I seen him in 40 years. And he went to Vietnam, and just talking about Vietnam almost brought him to tears. Like he really, and my father can't talk about Vietnam. My uncle was pretty jacked up from Vietnam. I know a lot of men. So that takes you back to Muhammad Ali, who once said, "Ain't no Viet Cong never called me nigga." And so Ali, who was a fighter by trade, was saying, "Hey, I'm not scared to fight. I just ain't fighting for you." I think that's a uniquely black disposition that I'm bound to respect tremendously. Because when Ali did fight, you saw him in Africa. Remember when he fought George Foreman in Africa, and it was amazing. He and he had all of Africa at his back, and he said, "Ali Boumaye, Ali Boumaye." That was very inspiring to watch. It was a movie called When We Were Kings. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's one of the most inspiring movies ever made. And I'm proud of Ali because I'm from Louisville too. And actually my uncle that I talked to for the first time in 40 years, he told me he knew Ali very well. He was a boxer. And so my point is to say that when we brag about how many black people have died in all these wars, I really wonder if there's room to kind of speculate on which wars are worth dying in. I don't know if I trust government officials enough to even declare war in an appropriate fashion. They will get you riled up and feeling all patriotic, making you somehow believe that we have to go to Afghanistan and Iraq because we're defending American freedom, when really somebody from APAC or a Zionist has paid a politician to get you to fight battles on their behalf. So I'm not telling you where to fight. I think you should never be afraid to fight. But I think I ask you this question. What are you fighting for? Have you thought carefully about what you're targeting with this energy? If you're going to die, what are you going to die for? Like, I'm not scared to die. My fear of death left a long time ago. I think the only thing I'd be afraid of is dying for nothing, right? And I think that when you think about what we have fought for, it almost comes back to money. We fought in the civil rights movement for the right to spend our money with white folks, right? We literally would let them beat us upside the head just for the opportunity to go into their store and spend our money. I think that was the wrong fight. However, it would have made sense if we got beat upside the head for the opportunity to own our own businesses. So every day when you use your energy to fight for something or you give your attention to something, I would encourage you to think carefully about what your values are and what energy alignment matters for your value system, right? What am I going to fight for today? Because think about this. Think about how many black people you know who will fight harder for their job than they will for their family. Like I've seen people give up their whole family for their career. And I don't think that's a logical trade. That's not logical at all. Um, so think about that a little bit. Okay. Let's keep going. So he says, this is page 165 of the book Dirty Little Secrets by Dr. Claude Anderson. It's on the website powernomics.com. And also the All Black National Convention's very soon. So no more passes are available. We sold out, but I know a lot of you are coming. And as soon as the convention's over, the tickets for next year will be made available. So if you want to keep track of that, just text A, B, and C to the number 87948, and I'll send you a link first. You guys will get the link first for Brooklyn next year. So text A, B, and C to 87948, and it's August 13th, 2025. And so you may be watching a recording, so I want you to have the date. All right, so moving on. But the convention is not August 13th. The convention of this year is the 21st to the 24th. but next year we'll probably push it back a little bit to November or December, or sorry, November or October. All right. So it says here on page 165, why the North won the war. The Union won the Civil War primarily because it had the industry, soldiers, technology, and a centralized form of government. But to their credit, the Southern Confederacy nearly won the war because the South had a greater concentration of wealth, trained military leaders, and millions of unpaid slave workers whose labor provided food, military supplies, and supportive care for unattended white families and farms. The presence of 5 million slaves in the South during the war was a knife that cut two ways. A small number of slaves refused to assist the South, choosing instead to organize and become a subversive force within the belly of the Confederacy. Thousands of black slaves crippled the South by serving as spies, saboteurs, and guerrilla forces for the North. Runaway slaves left fields and homes in the South unattended. What may have been more injurious was the fact that a large percentage of them joined and fought with the Union Army. They were not only soldiers, but served as construction workers, cooks, personal servants, woodcutters, teamsters, and skilled craftsmen. By the end of the Civil War, more than 200,000 black men had formerly fought in the Union Army to defeat the old Confederacy. Okay. This says a black, now this is a black person's poem, a black's post-Civil War poem. Okay, it doesn't say who it's from, but let's read it. It's very short. It says, "We ain't what we ought to be. We ain't what we want to be. We ain't what we gonna be. But thank God we ain't what we used to be." Hmm. Okay, that's pretty creative, right? I like that. Nice, short to the point. Okay, so we ain't what we ought to be. We ain't what we want to be. We ain't what we're gonna be. But thank God we ain't what we used to be. I like that. That's a good theme. It really speaks to something we talked about this morning in class about growth. Growth is actually really important. If you're committed to growth, then you're going to win. You will win because you're committed to moving forward. You're committed to learning. You're committed to developing. You're committed to always being better tomorrow than you were the day before. And I was mentioning to you that that's how stocks are valued. I don't know if you know, stocks are not valued based on how much money the company makes. That's not, or at least that's not the dominant valuation. The dominant factor in the valuation of a stock, this is from the equations that are used to tell you what a stock's valuation is. The dominant factor is typically growth, especially for young companies. Like what would be a good young company? Let me think here. We talk about like Oklo, right? Oklo is primarily valued by its growth. I know a lot of you have made money from Oklo, so that's a good example. And so basically, if you are a stock, which that's what you are a growing person, you are developing, you are learning. That's why you're here. And I applaud you. That makes you a very valuable asset to the community. Every human being is an asset when they choose to be. Some people choose to be liabilities, but you're an asset. And so if you want to be the best asset you can be, commit yourself to growth. If you do that, then you're going to win. All right, so let's keep going. Until death do us part. While President Lincoln was reluctant and belatedly facing up to his obligation to free America's black people from bondage, at least one Confederate leader freed the slaves that he personally owed. On December 21st, 1861, General Robert E. Lee, the commander-in-chief of the Confederate Armed Forces, instructed his wife in a letter to free any of his 63 slaves who wanted to be free upon his death. The fact that number would be anything other than 63 is quite baffling. Like, why would anybody not want to be free? But as you know, there were some slaves who wanted to go back to the plantation. Lee's plantation was converted into the Arlington National Cemetery to both punish the South and to ensure the land would never be used again for slavery. The land of Lee's co-compatriot, Jefferson Davis, met a similar fate. Following the South's loss in the Civil War, Jefferson Davis, who had been the president of the Confederacy, was sent to a Union prison. Since the war had depleted his finances, Davis was forced to sell his plantation for $300,000 to Benjamin T. Montgomery, one of his former black slaves. Unfortunately, the old public policy of selling to blacks on credit only caught up with Montgomery. Southern whites began establishing farmer alliances in the late 1860s that excluded blacks from banking development funds, product distribution systems, and marketing opportunities. After 15 years of payments, Montgomery, like thousands of other black farmers, lost his revenue base and ability to make mortgage payments. Davis's plantation then reverted into the hands of his family, where it was converted into a museum. I'll be damned. Man, that sucks. Woo. That's heavy. So he made all those payments, and eventually, because he was locked out of various systems, economically, he wasn't able to get the support he needed, which therefore led to him being foreclosed upon. Um, so this really speaks to the significance of economic self-defense, the ability to not just acquire assets, but to know how to protect them. And it requires discipline, it requires strategy, it requires knowledge and skill, it requires planning. And so a lot of families, I don't know if you guys know this, but 70% of all wealthy families lose all their wealth within one generation. So getting it is one thing, keeping it is another. And I would encourage anybody who cares about anything that we talked about to sort of really think about economic self-defense and just what that ends up looking like, so that you'll then know how to kind of process that. I did some stuff on economic self-defense in the Black Business School at some point. I'm going to try to find it and I can text it to you guys. Make sure you're on the text list for the Powernomics training. It's you text the word greatness to 87948. So text greatness to 87948. And I'm gonna try to see. Here we go. I did something called the rules of economic self-defense. And what I'll do is I'll find like a really steep coupon. Oh, here's something that's 70% off. And it's a training that can sort of break down economic self-defense. There's a lot of modules to it. So here's a link if you want to take a look. Because ultimately, if you do all this hard work to acquire assets, you want to work just as hard to try to protect and preserve those assets. And if you think about this, I want you to think about how many families you know that have lost property. Maybe they lost grandma's house because they got foreclosed on, or they lost, or they got a bunch of money and they blew the bag. And we just kind of think that that's kind of funny. It's not funny when somebody blows their generational wealth, or an NBA player who makes $100 million and ends up going broke. So really understanding the tools of wealth preservation, I think, is absolutely essential. It's really literally as important as acquiring wealth. I mean, if you're not going to keep it, if you're just going to lose it, then you should never go for it anyway. Why not just be lazy? Don't work then, but you work hard to acquire wealth so you can have it. And when you have it, believe me, you got to keep it, because once you get it, you become a target. Capitalism to some extent is like a game of King of the Hill. It's King of the Hill where you ever play King of the Hill where if you get to the top of the hill, somebody's always trying to take you down from the hill. That's just a rule. That's just what it is. Right. So you don't just have to be strong enough to get there. You got to be strong enough to stay there. And you stay there by having the right allies, having the right strategy, understanding basic concepts like diversification, wealth protection, estate planning, trusts, things like that, right? So anyway, also we do economic elevation circles. If you want to talk about that in terms of preserving legacy, we do those once a month. We're going to do one at the convention as well. So you can go to economicelevationcircle.com if you want to take a look and join us. That's economicelevationcircle.com. All right, so let's see here. Okay, last one I'm going to read, and then we'll be finished up for tonight. This one says slavery wealth hidden on Wall Street. The Civil War allowed the origins of this nation's wealth to be transformed and hidden. It moved from south to north, from owning slaves to owning land, from investing in the institution of slavery to investing in Wall Street stocks and bonds. Prior to the Civil War, nearly all businesses were directly or indirectly selling products and goods produced by slavery. The nation's textile, tobacco, shipping, insurance, cotton, sugar, ironworks, building, furniture, and agricultural industries all thrived off slavery. Wall Street commodities were linked to and fluctuated with the rising and falling values of slaves. In the 1840s, there were only one or two millionaires. John Astor, with 16 million, 1/5 of the nation's wealth. Holy shit, that's crazy. Well, he was the richest man in America. Of course he was. He derived his $16 million fortune from businesses that profited from slavery. The Civil War generated a rush of millionaires. Merchants who were able to sell slave-produced items, especially food, clothing, military supplies, and weapons, reaped fantastic profits from government contracts. Others made fortunes from the war over slavery by selling abroad. For instance, the king and queen of commodities, of course, remained cotton and tobacco. On the eve of the Civil War, England purchased approximately £1 billion from the South. While the Civil War had depressed cotton prices in the South to as low as 3 cents a pound, cotton industries in England paid as much as 48 cents a pound. That's called arbitrage, where you buy low, sell high. You buy it cheaply in America for 3 cents, you sell it in England for 48 cents. Next thing you know, rinse and repeat, you're building millionaires. This sale produced approximately $500 for every white person in America. And $500 is a lot of money back then. After the Union Navy began to blockade southern ports and harbors, the profit on 1,000 bales of cotton with a fast delivery, that is within 2 weeks, in one instance was $250,000. That's $250 a pound, from 3 cents to 250. That's crazy. After the Civil War, the wealth was shifted into northern factories to profit from the pending Industrial Revolution. The U.S. government gave millions of acres of land to the newly arriving European immigrants and privately owned railroads. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad received free land that was the equivalent of the size of the state of Texas. Within a few decades, railroads and their stock exchanges had sold nearly all of it at an average price of $22 per acre. The Civil War produced new millionaires like the Vanderbilts and the Carnegies. Their newly acquired wealth was reinvested in railroads, shipping, oil, land, and Wall Street stocks. Slavery and cotton were no longer the investment kings. So, what this speaks to is that when you talk about something like reparations for Black people, it's a very deep topic. It goes far deeper than the government writing a check. Deeper than that. Just the financial side is very deep. The financial side says that every single entity in the United States probably benefited tremendously from slavery on some level, to the point where the government may or may not have the money that it needs to repay you, but America certainly does. America certainly does. Um, but America's not going to pay you, not anytime soon. And the reason they're not going to pay you is not just because they're going to fight you tooth and nail, but number two, you haven't shown the courage to demand it. You just haven't. You haven't negotiated properly. When they ask you to vote, you just say, okay, who do I vote for? And you do what you're told. And you don't demand anything for that vote. So until Black people are able to demand something for their vote, you won't see a lot of movement on the reparations issue. Now, the good news, though, is that if you consider reparations to be something that simply closes the racial wealth gap or increases Black wealth, I have a very simple reparations plan that I can explain to you in about 3 minutes. And I know that it's going to work because I know how to do math. If every Black person in America was to invest as much money in the stock market as we spend on our car note every month, and if you don't have a car note, then find some other bill that's about $400 or $500, match that bill. If you invest as much in the stock market that you put into your car note, or the money you spend on fast food, or going out, or going on vacation, or buying Beyonce tickets, or whatever it is that you do with your money, maybe half of your rent money or something like that, because rent is not 400 for most of you. Rent is 1,500 or 2,000. So most of you are making your landlords rich. If you do say $400 or $500 a month, or to be more precise, let's pick a number like $450 because I know what that math looks like precisely. After about 10 years, you'd have roughly you have over $100,000 in wealth. After about 20 years, you'd have somewhere around a quarter million to $300,000 in wealth. So in less than 20 years, really 15, really 10, if you really want to be strict about it, every single Black person who does exactly what I just said can quit their job. And why do I say that? Well, because there's nobody who has $100,000 liquid in their investment portfolio who has to go to work every day. I'm not saying that you have enough money to live forever. I'm not saying that you don't need income sources from somebody, but I am going to say that that would be enough money where you're not sitting here having night sweats and freaking out and having to drink yourself to sleep every night because you're stressed out that Donald Trump is going to cut your DEI program, take your job, or somehow take away your ability to live. You have a right to live free. And freedom is something that has always been available to you, not because the white man gave it to you. It's because God gave it to you. God gave you the keys to anything that you want to be, anything you want to do, and those keys lie within inside of you. So if you want to know where what Dr. Boyce's reparations plan is, sure, there's great plans out there. Ice Cube's contract with Black America is extraordinarily good. He consulted with excellent scholars. Dr. Claude Anderson has an amazing plan. Even HR, I think it's HR, whatever, HR 42. I love all those things are fine. But the simplest plan on earth, really honestly, is every single one of us right now just committing to the idea that that having an investment plan is more important than having a job. That preparing for your future is more important than preparing to get a better opportunity from whatever advanced degree that you're pursuing or whatever it is, right? So send your kids to school, work hard every day, keep doing what you're doing, but make sure the investment plan is there because that's what's going to get you to that next level and put you in a position where you're not really running around feeling like your life is controlled by somebody else. I know a whole lot of black people that have 50, 100 grand in their bank accounts, and they're not sitting around scared of Donald Trump or nobody. They're just not. They're living their lives. So that's what I want for you, and I hope that that's okay. All right, guys. So I'm gonna stop talking now. Thank you guys for listening. I do have a book. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. Thank you guys for those of you who've ordered it. I think it's a book that I'm proud of, and it's done really well on Amazon. So probably I think about 100,000 copies by now. So if you'd like to get a copy from us, and I'll sign it for you, just go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. I also am an expert in stock options, and I believe in safe, careful investing that can increase your cash flow. So if you want to participate, you can go to drboyceprime.com. That URL is right above my head, drboyceprime.com. And I know you're going to love it. And if you don't love it, that's okay. We have great money back guarantees in the Black Business School. And if you want to know what my biggest goal is, my goal is to build an educational institution that creates Black wealth for the next 400 or 500 years, that creates strong families, that builds a strong community, that makes us absolutely unstoppable, and creates a type of power that is sustainable and fearless. And that's what I want for the kids. That's what I want our children to have. I don't want them walking around in fear. I want them walking around in power. So that's why we do what we do. So God bless you guys. Have a great day. I will see you all at the convention. And until then, be one. And remember, investing is the new black. So make sure you are an investor. That's what you're supposed to do. See you guys later. Love you. Peace.